For those of you who are StreamGeeks regulars, I spoke last year, this is a slide from my presentation, about how if you want to live stream, you need fairly fast, depending on the bandwidth you're using, but very reliable internet, right? So if you're only trying to do 720p, you can get away with as little as 5 megabits. If you're trying to do 4K, you need, at least 25 megabits. 50 would be nicer. But even more important is that it has to be reliable. If it keeps going out, it's a disaster. And no one, audiences just leave so quickly now. You go offline for 30 seconds, they'll find another stream. You're done.
Or talk about it all over the news.
Yes. Yes, if you have an audience like Mr. Beast does, it becomes a very different thing. So, Ryan is at Miri Technologies, and they have launched this new router, the X510. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Ryan?
A little bit about this router. Who's in production here? Show of hands. Who thinks internet is important? Right. Who has been to a venue that the internet was questionable? You didn't know where you were going to get it. Okay, keep your hands up if they want to charge you a couple $1,000s for internet. Okay, they tell you that the internet is wonderful in their venue. The Wi-Fi is great. Okay, here we go. So this was the problem. I come from World of Production, and this router was really born out of live streaming the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. We're in Annapolis. I've done a site survey. Last minute, they move it interior of the hotel. Well, my bonded encoder just couldn't get cellular data connectivity. The only other option they had was to pay $4,000 for a LAN cable or their Wi-Fi that was behind a captive portal. Anyone ever tried to use some of their hardware streaming appliances behind captive portals? Really problematic. Things have gotten better over the years, but this was about 4 years ago, and I was really kind of in a jam. So I remember Paul doing a stream about Speedify, and I happened to have my computer there as well with vMix, and I downloaded Speedify quickly. I used my USB modems into the computer, and I basically was just trying to bond anything I could. Well, save my stream. I got the stream out, but I knew right then I needed to build hardware that could incorporate Speedify and have any access to any type of data connectivity, whether it be tethering devices, connecting to their Wi-Fi behind captive portals, RJ45 connections, and so this is how the router was built. If you're not familiar, on my day job, I'm the CTO at MVD, and we're the distributors in North America for Magewell and some others. And so we went to Magewell and we said, look, we want to build a router. You've never done this before. We'll tell you how we want it done, but we just want your reliability and hardware. And so this router was born. This is a Magewell product. And so we've launched it at NAB New York, and we've tested it in these high stress scenarios like Mr. Beast we're going to talk about, and others. I heard eCam mentioned. We're eCam fam members. Just came back from Creator Camp.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Creator Camp in a minute. Why don't you talk about all the internet connections on this thing?
Yeah, so as you're looking at this, it's kind of wild. We have a 4G SIM, we have a 5G SIM, we have 4 RJ45s that can be WAN or LAN. So we just released firmware last week that allows you to configure those any way you want. We also have 2 USB ports on the front so you can tether devices. There's Wi-Fi 2.4 and 5 gigahertz radio that can connect to a network, or it can serve as an access point. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, pair and share. So we say like 7 data connections to this hardware device, but sometimes you need more. So with pair and share, which is a patented feature of Speedify, all you have to do is have a phone that has an app on it connected to the same network, and we're happy to report that now an additional 20 cellular devices can contribute data to this. That means 27 total data connections are possible as needed. There's not really anything else out there, well, there is nothing else out there in the world that has that type of versatility and flexibility. And then, in addition, we put a USB config port on the front, because when sometimes you need to access the router to configure it, it's as simple as plugging in a USB-C cable, going to a static IP address, and you now have full control over that device, irregardless of how the router is configured. Because when you're going from venue to venue to venue, You might have forgot what the Wi-Fi password was. It might be on a different subnet than your computer is set up for. So there's always a way to access that router's web UI on the config port. Plus, it's NPF battery powered. Yeah. Who here has NPF batteries? Who's got a whole boatload of NPF batteries? Right. So hot swappable, so it'll run indefinitely with NPF batteries, and you've got a cool little touch screen on the front, so you can access things like settings in that part.
You can get a QR code up to join the hotspot.
Yeah, it's a super cool
my
little
favorite
thing.
use of it. All right. So you mentioned Speedify. So this, I'm with Speedify. This is our software for combining internet connections, and it's built into the Miri router. But you can also just get it from the App Store for your iPhone. You can get it for Android, for Windows, for Mac, if you go to speedify.com. And what it does is it creates on your computer, your router, whatever, a fake internet connection. And behind that, the software is actually using all of the real internet connections you have. And so it can switch you from connection to connection, and it all looks the same to all your apps and stuff. It's just the internet. And it can do things, it can use them in parallel, sending some packets on one connection, some on the other. If it decides you're doing something really important, like a live stream, and there's data loss, it can go redundantly and actually send your stream on multiple connections at the same time. What else? And yeah, so once you have it on a router, of course you can put it on different devices. You can have it on your iPhone, I do. But there are all sorts of other devices, right? Cameras, the Mevos, PlayStations that don't run Speedify. But once you put them on a router that has Speedify, they have it, right? They're going through that internet connection. And so everything becomes much, much more reliable, even if it's not some smart device. It just sees an internet connection from your Miri-enabled router. So let's talk about some stories about this getting used in the real world. So I wasn't at Ecamm Creator Camp this year.
Who was? Anyone? Were you at Ecamm? Nope. Okay, next year.
All right, we got a couple in the far back, hiding in the corner. So Ecamm, they do software for the Mac for live streaming. It's really nice. And they do this event where they take, it's sort of like this. They take a whole bunch of their, best users up to northern Massachusetts to get together to talk about streaming. It's a really nice event in just an absolutely terrible place for live streaming, right? It's far outside the city. So this year, Ryan loaded up his car with gear and headed over to help.
Yeah, so, here's the scenario where they're inside of this brew pub in a building that was built in the 1800s. There's like 7-8 courses of brick. They're sitting in a valley in town. They already don't have great cell coverage, and then they try to live stream. And this is another one of those scenarios where the venue says, hey, our Wi-Fi is great. Well, it might be for running a POS system or the occasional person there catching a beer who's going to look up ESPN or something, but not for live streaming. So what typically happens is a big group of people get in there, they connect to the guest network, and now they oversaturate that access point, right? So we were actually watching that entire connection go offline, meaning their router for beer sales, for everything, was literally rebooting itself because it became overran. And so those are some of the challenges. So what do? We just basically threw every connection at this thing, and when that failed, everything else ramped up. So we were able to live stream through Ecamm with the Mac, and they had no drop packets, no drop frames. They were, first year they could actually live stream. We'll come to find out their internet service provider just drops throughout the entire town. So we actually took another router over to Ecamm's headquarters across the street and stood up an entirely different network because they were live streaming from there as well. So what does it do? It detects where that drops off, and it intelligently and automatically ramps up as fast as like 300 milliseconds. It'll have that other connection ramped up from secondary mode to primary. And it's really cool because you can rate limit connections too. So I have the new Starlink Roam. I get 50 gig bucket. Well, I can set that inside of the router's UI, and it'll do something after 50 gigs. I could tell it to reduce the speed or stop using the connection. So if you've got a SIM card, and it's like your emergency backup, you pay Google Fi for, $50 a month for, 50 gigs or something, you can actually set that all through the router as well to protect you as well. So that's how we ran Ecamm Creator Camp from inside of a brew pub in Amesbury, Mass. I should mention, I talk about Starlink. Speedify is optimized for Starlink, and we're going to talk more about Starlink, but those are just different types of data sources. So it's about how do we aggregate all of those sources together to create one usable stream.
So one little trick that I think is implied to the two of us, but might not be obvious, is when you switch from one internet connection to another, normally, right, all your downloads and stuff and your live streams stop, and you have to start them again. And the core reason is that you changed IP addresses. And that, the definition of a connection or a download or an upload on the internet to the software is the IP address at each end and the port number at each end. And so when you change IP addresses, you broke every upload and download. So that doesn't happen with Speedify, because the whole time you're using our IP address of one of our computers on the internet. So when we switch you from one internet connection to another, you're just basically using this fake IP address the whole time. So we can start you off on Wi-Fi and then move your live stream to cellular, and then later on move it back to Wi-Fi, and your software never knows anything changes. It's just been using that Speedify IP address the whole time. So, all right, NAB Show New York. So here I used it. Ryan had a booth and was presenting, and I just went as a live streamer. And I took a Miri router and I put into it an AT&T and a T-Mobile SIM. And then I had a phone with Verizon, and I had it join the hotspot and pair and share. So now I had 3 cellular connections. And actually, Ryan back there, I think he had a T-Mobile as well. And so I made him join the hotspot as well. So we had, 4 cellular connections across the 3 carriers. And while everyone else was saying it's impossible to stream here, the internet's so bad, I was walking around the show with this thing in my hand, interviewing people, and people were saying this is the best live stream we've ever seen from one of these shows.
We should have brought about 20 for the other booths that had experienced internet challenges.
At some point, if you're too generous, we overwhelm the cellular carriers again, right? So every one of these carriers was showing packet loss and stuff, and none of them were actually good enough to stream on. But Speedify was throwing stuff onto all 4. Actually, big tip there is that, Speedify can use all these connections to try to add them up. You really want to use different cellular carriers, right? So in reality in the US, there's Verizon, there's AT&T, and there's T-Mobile. Now you see commercials for all these other people, Mint and Cricket and all that stuff, and all of the others, including even, Comcast, Xfinity, they're all just reselling one of those other 3. If you get far enough out in the boonies, there's also US Cellular. They're the 4th real one, but they only cover places where no one else does. So all the others are actually going on to one of those. And so if you have 2 on the same carrier, we'll try to add them up. But depending on what's going on, if something's interrupting one, there's a very good chance it's interrupting the same at the same time, whether it's a problem at the tower or a problem with the tower's internet or just that they've run out of RF bandwidth in the area. So anytime you can get on different carriers, that's better. All right, so we're coming
brings
to
us to
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. So we got the call. It's in Aurora Fielder, North Carolina. They started building the set out. They're simulating the house down to, tape on the chair, all of this stuff. And our mission was basically to run an OBS computer, provide it with data. They run 1080/60 at 32 megabits. Their steadfast was that's how they do it at home, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how they're doing it for this thing. And so we had to be about 300 feet back from this room. So we got an RV, and we basically had 2 of the only Miri routers in the country running this. So we had 2 Starlinks, we had 2 SIM cards internal, we had 2 devices tethered, we had a hotspot for parent share. And so we went into a Netgear switch, and then we basically fed their OBS computer. We talk a little bit about, there's all the connections that
all the internet connections he was using at the same time.
And this is important to know, like North Carolina has some challenges. They space their cell towers out pretty far apart because it's relatively flat land. each cell connection only had about 350 to 400K.
Well, and just worse than North Carolina, I mean, they knew they were blowing up a house, so they picked a spot very far away from anything to minimize damage.
Yeah, so we talk about like being prepared, okay? So Starlink is an option that brings you an entirely different type of connection, but there are inherent challenges with Starlink. They they actually very precisely and timely switch satellites every 15 seconds. And how many satellites switch at once, Alex?
So every Starlink in the world, this is a weird fact, right, are perfectly time synchronized so that every 15 seconds, every Starlink in the world changes satellites at the same time.
It's a problem for live streaming.
Right? And every time they switch, they drop like 2 or 3 packets. Not many, except, live streamers, every single one counts, right? So I'm a big fan because, they'll sometimes bring you 250 megabits in, places where you had no internet before. But they're unreliable. They get faster and slower. Latency gets better and worse, and if you start watching, it's every 15 seconds. Suddenly, it completely changes stats as it hits a different satellite.
So this is where we talk about aggregation of other data sources. In this particular scenario, what would have been ideal would have really great 5G MIMO directional antennas. So we're actually working with a company out of Canada, Waveform. They make these really awesome panel antennas that can go pole mount. So you could have a tripod or a C-stand, and you basically just raise that mast up in the air and you spin and rotate. This kind of was born out of like home internet. So you get like the T-Mobile thing where you have that device and it sits interior of the home. Probably not the best location. Some of these people put it in their basement and then the homeowner's like, I get really terrible home internet through T-Mobile. And it's like, well, get it out of your media closet in the basement and get the thing up where it can get a signal. So that's where they're using these directional antennas. And that's part of like the pre-planned process now, right? So looking at all of these avenues, what does your toolkit have to basically guarantee you an internet connection? Those are all things to be thinking of how you can overcome those problems.
So one funny thing, you were texting me through this whole thing. I had nothing to do, so I'm sitting there at home just watching on my TV. But you were texting, and you said that at one point, the Starlink stopped working in the middle of the stream, and it was okay because everything switched to cellular. And so you went running out, and what did you see?
So fun fact, in Mr. Beast's production thingy, there's like, 30 Starlinks on a shelf. All right, and they just grab them, and they're all on priority data. But the one that we had as the main connection with priority data, we see it drop off. We're texting, and Sean Hendricks, Mr. Beast production guy, opens up the window of the RV, and there's a dude standing over top of the Starlink, just sipping a cola, watching this whole thing happen. And it's like we're in the middle of a field. We didn't put cones around to prevent people from standing over a Starlink. Everything else ramped up, and we had no problems. But just to see one of your connections, if you're a live streamer, your heart skips a beat. You're wondering what's going on, and so we got that person to move pretty quickly.
So a humorous problem with Starlinks in the winter is that cats climb up on the dish because it's warm from the RF. And so people will lose internet from, cats curled up on their dish and you have to chase them off or whatever.
Anyone from North Carolina? Good, I can say this. Some of the bugs down there are about the size of a cat, all right? Like that could legitimate have been an issue with some of the insects that I encountered that night.
Yeah. All right. Is this going to work? No. All right. I was going to show you the last 20 seconds. So the video, they built an exact duplicate of Kai's house. Actually, a few people in the audience, I'm watching chats, realized it wasn't really Kai's house because it was cleaner than Kai's house has ever been. People noticed that. And they filled it with, a couple thousand pounds of fireworks with the OBS computer there in the room filming it. And they lit the fireworks and then ran like hell. And it went off and completely, literally destroyed the computer, right? So they had how long, 300 foot?
It was 300 feet, yeah.
300 foot Ethernet cable between the computer and the Miri router. And yeah, the computer was in fact completely destroyed. So the stream ended.
Yeah, fun fact.
The internet was still working, but when you blow up your computer, the stream's over.
And that was the whole intent. So once the stream buffered, we knew the computer was fried. So I yanked the cable out of the Netgear switch just so we didn't create some anomaly and burn up a switch too. But last second they're running last minute tests and they realized that his lights were the wrong color inside of the room, but it was a Govee light strip. You have to have those connected to a Wi-Fi network. So thankfully, again in my kit, I keep an access point. So I quickly ran another 300-foot cable, stood up a Wi-Fi network to get the Govees connected, and that burned up too, but I did cut the wire. I cut the burnt end of the Ethernet wire where it went into the building, and that thing's gonna hang on my wall.
Nice. Yeah, good trophy.
Yeah. So that's just how we've kind of been using this. A couple trade shows. We've been launched for 2.5 months. This is a couple years in the making of dreaming about a product that has the versatility and the flexibility of this router, and then partnered with Speedify for things that are unique, such as the pair and share. These guys are out of Philadelphia. They're hometown people. And
walked over today.
Correct. And so it really just makes it nice, right? Because we know them. They've got servers all around the world. But they're a great group of people who get into this just as much as we do. They are very active in live streaming, so they understand the industry very well.
Thank you. I'm really excited about this router. It's a good, solid piece of gear. It is so useful. Between the batteries and the multiple SIM cards, I mean, it's the device I always wanted.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to the presentation. Is there any questions on? Yeah. Any questions on the stream? We're behind an NDA for a lot of things, but.
My question is, can you promise that if Paul asks to blow something up, you won't?
The question is, if Paul asks to blow something up, we won't do it. Yeah, I think we're done blowing up anything ever again, hopefully.
I don't know about it. Ever.
Okay, maybe not ever.
But maybe not today.
Yes, ma'am.
They should have called us.
They should have.
They should have. I think that there was, the question is about the Mike Tyson fight. That's the elephant in a room for live streamers now. Everyone, a lot of that was server-related problems, is my understanding. Netflix servers just really were not optimized for live content. I don't suspect that they likely had a problem getting from the venue, but everything is perceived as our problem, right? Like this is, when you can't live stream or it's a poor experience on the other end, it is all of our faults, and that's just how the cookie crumbles and stuff rolls downhill. But very much likely it was a server issue, and I don't suspect they'll have that problem the next go around.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. So it doesn't have any sort of profiles. So if you want to change settings, you have to pull up the web UI and change the settings. For the most part, there aren't that many settings you need to change most of the time.
You got to remember Wi-Fi. So if you've put in that venue's Wi-Fi,
there's a venue's
password.
Wi-Fi. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But other than that, most of the time, I mean, it sees what SIM cards you have, and those are obviously the ones you want to use. And
yeah. Yeah, because remember, we're just data, right? So we work in conjunction with many other devices, like somebody you'll probably hear about in a little bit. We're happy to work with them as well. In fact, we do sit in front of some live view encoders so that they can get more data sources, just because in the 3-letter broadcast industry, they're all using the same device, the same amount of SIMs, likely the same SIMs like AT&T FirstNet. And so sometimes they say, hey, the difference is adding 20 additional sources of data. It has nothing to do with anything else other than the press pool that travels with a lot of our government officials are all using the same thing. So we're happy to work with all of the encoder solutions, and we just literally sit before them.
There's a question from Zoom coming in.
All right.
Can you remotely, administratively control and configure the Miri router?
Yeah, you can. So as I mentioned, Magewell builds this unit, so it's actually able to be accessed through Magewell Control Hub, which gives remote connectivity and control. Just like you're sitting there, you pull up the device's web UI, and it's no different. And so you can register that to 2 different ones. So, Alex has access at a hierarchy view to all of our Miri devices, but me as a local company could have access to all of my devices as well. So there's a tiered approach to that. But yeah, you can access it from anywhere in the world as long as it's connected to the internet.
Yeah, you get the whole web user interface
Right.
up from wherever.
And also remote uploading firmware. So you can actually throw new firmware across an entire batch of devices as well.
We got one more question here.
So it sounds similar to network devices. What differentiates your product from?
So the question is like the product differentiation from Mushroom, and we'll just throw in Peplink, right? Look, the algorithm of bonding is different. That's actually the part that is the secret sauce of it. So likely there's inherent differences there. Pair and share, the I/O of the device, the NPF batteries, the ways that it connects and defeat captive portals, those are what makes the Miri really geared towards live stream and broadcast, because that's the industry that I come from. My emphasis isn't transportation. It really is wholly focused on how do we ensure that people want to do video production can do that from anywhere.
We have a question back here.
Is it secure?
Yeah. So all the traffic is by default encrypted. It actually is a VPN. So all the traffic coming in and out of the box is encrypted. We're using a hardware encryption engine on the board, so it's lightning fast. You don't really notice. But we just encrypt everything at this point. Why not?
Cool. Well, thank you so much for letting us talk about this.
All right, I'm going to introduce India, since she is our MC today, and she's presenting next. India is a eCam creator and local video production expert in Philadelphia. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say today, India.
Hey. All right, guys. So I'm not sure. I'm going to ask some questions first before I get into my presentation, because I want to make sure, although I don't know, it's going to be hard unless we get feedback from the Zoom as well. Really, this is about optimizing studio spaces. So it may or may not pertain to you. We're going to talk about a good, better, best budget. I know when I started creating, really, and I'm sure the majority of creators or live streamers probably got into it during the pandemic, right? Because we had no choice. Everything was through Zoom. Everything was video conferencing. So what do you guys do? Anyone here create content, and it doesn't have to be a content creator, but are you guys like behind cameras talking, or are your customers behind cameras? What do we got?
Yeah, I create podcasts for people, and I produce it for them, and I also have my own podcast that I produce.
Okay, cool, perfect, thank you. Anyone else? What else? Or why don't you guys tell me what you guys are doing? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold both. You guys are gonna make me get my steps in today. All right, so this is the one for you guys, and we'll pass that one around. What do we got?
I'm a podcast producer, so audio and video and all that parts of it.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? And if not, that's cool. So for those of you guys, have you found yourselves with challenges of optimizing a space for like the video podcast? If you're maybe at a customer space? Yeah, I see some head nods. All right, cool. So I'm going to try to go through this without it being too simple, I guess, because you guys all look like you're tech nerds like me. Like, this is why we're here, right? Like, hello, we're all tech nerds. But I think that I found a progression, and I was lucky enough when I bought my house, like I told my realtor, a need of mine is to have a finished basement or a dedicated space that I can turn into a studio. But not everybody has that, right? Like, I was in a place that I was able to buy a house at the same time. However, I started off with a green screen. So, I already kind of covered that stuff, but we'll talk about good, better, best. So really starting off with the easiest, most inexpensive, quickest option is going to be an option for a green screen. This one that's on screen here is actually that one that's back there. It's an Delgato fold-up portable one. I have that in my house. I'm gonna be honest, you guys, I started with a green cloth that I hung up from my ceiling so you don't have to go all in. You make it work. I think that the most important thing, whether it is for yourselves or it is for your clients, is really getting the content out there, getting their voice out there and getting their words out there. So however we can eliminate those obstacles to make it happen, that's, I think, a big starting point. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about the different types of optimizing studio spaces is because not only did I need to use a green screen, but I started off in a dining room. Again, this was during the pandemic where we were all working from home. We still had to get on Zoom calls. And so my partner and I were literally split the dining room in half, and she would get on calls and I would get on calls, and we didn't want to be on each other's calls. And so we started there. Right, so it's cost effective, it's cheap, it's easy to set up, you can break it down, bring it up, but on the other end, the cons is that it can be kind of cheesy. People can usually tell that you're using a green screen. You have to use a lot of lights. So it can, although it can start off inexpensive, it can get expensive if you want to have that video production quality. And so I gave some links to that stuff there. Here is, okay, is the video gonna work? The video should work. So this is a quick kind of time lapse of me putting a green screen together in my basement to show you what that looks like. Right, I'm trying to get in, eliminate some of the angles here, and basically coming in and making sure that the green screen takes the whole screen. And then the other thing, okay, good. So you want to, hold on. Sorry, guys. I don't think I can pause this. Oh, if I come back. So one of the things you want to be mindful of when you are going through the green screen with the lighting is around your shoulders and stuff, right? Because people can tell. Can I get this to play again? Okay, it's going to start playing. No, maybe not. Oh, wait, are you guys helping me? Maybe? No. All right, we'll figure it out. But, okay, there it is, right? So if we look around my shoulders, once I turn the green screen on, you'll see like a green hue around the edges. And so you have to have lights in front of you, you have to have lights behind you. I mean, it can look good, but there's things that you have to do to kind of get around that. So green screen is great. These are just some different backgrounds to show that you can have different types of options. That's actually the Ecamm Live software that I use, very similar, like I said, to vMix and OBS. And this was 4 years ago. So here is where I was sharing the space. Like I said, it was a green cloth hanging from the basement, and I made it work. I think my budget was like $50 when I made this work. That's just showing how I had it up there. And I'm going to move into then the next setup, which is, I would say, the better, right? So good, better, best. Another option that you can use are photography backdrops, the rolls. So you can either make this permanent, you can make it semi-permanent. In this setup, my partner now lives in Connecticut, so I needed a studio away from the studio when I'm there. And so and what I did was I took some plywood, nailed it to the wall, and then I actually made it a permanent structure so that these rolls are permanently affixed. I do have another video here to show you what this looks like, but this is my setup with the photography backdrop. So in my opinion, this looks much better than a green screen. And what's really cool with this, okay, there it is. What's really cool with this is that you can customize it a little bit more with a natural feel, because if you are using RGB quality lights, now you can change the light. So if you have branding, specific branding that you want to have on there, you can, hold on, sorry guys. We were trying to put videos in last minute, so I tried to make this work to give you guys as best of a visual cue, okay, there it is, as possible. But basically, I just wanted to show, so this is the gray backdrop. If you're gonna use a photography backdrop, and in my studio, I do the same exact thing. I use a gray roll. And the reason why I use a gray roll is because with gray, so if you're gonna actually paint the walls, I would recommend going to Benjamin Moore, Winchester Gray. With that flat gray, that gray absorbs the light from RGB lights, and it actually turns the gray into whatever light you're looking to get. So when I purchased the rolls, I decided to get a similar gray, and those are from Savage Wallpapers. I forget the name of it, but you guys can reach out to Paul if you want to know the name, and I can get you guys that. But basically with that particular gray, I just choose, and I use Nanlite Pavo tubes, which are video RGB lights. I choose the color that I want, and then I just have 2 Pavo tubes, one behind me, one on the right, one on the left, and it absorbs the light, and it gives you that look. I don't know if I can come back. It gives you that look as if it is the actual, like if the paper itself is blue and purple, but it's not. The paper itself is gray. I do have, if you saw, like when we went into it, I do have a green screen roll for the same thing if I needed to have some different effects and stuff like that. And so, let me see. And so that's just that. With the photography backdrop, I would say in terms of budget, you can probably do it about $200. Again, it's semi-permanent, so you can use them on photography stands if you don't want to affix them to your wall or your ceiling, or you can have it affixed to the wall or ceiling, so depending on what your client or you're looking to do. And then the last step, and I didn't really put a picture of my studio here because I think that that's really, right? Like, this is gonna look great on camera. Having a dedicated space that you can go ahead and customize, that's, I think, the easiest to do, but it's the most expensive to do, and it's the least accessible. Because again, not everyone has a dedicated room they can turn into a studio. Not everyone has the option to tell your realtor, hey, get me a house and it has to have a finished basement, right? Like I was lucky when I did that. But that also has the pros. You're gonna customize it. You can have your, all your backdrop and stuff like that, but then there's the cons. And, cable management. Who loves cable management? I hate my cable management. But I did want to talk about a bonus setup as well. I have an impact stand. And so this is, I lied. You can see a little bit of my studio here. So this is what the studio looks like, but this is on a portable impact stand. And so what I did was kind of like a rolling C stand. I have a bunch of Manfrotto 6-inch arms with Manfrotto clamps. And so there's one Manfrotto clamp for my camera, one Manfrotto clamp for my audio / capture card. I have a Manfrotto, or I have a magic arm with a light. So this is what the actual portable setup looks like. And so that's really cool. I was gonna try to bring it today, but I was running a little behind, so I didn't have time to do it, right? But when you're thinking about your customers, if you guys, right, if you wanna have something that's portable, something like that would be a great setup where you just get the C-stand, you get the arms, that's a laptop stand, and then you can take that wherever you go. So then like I said, I have it in my house because I just have the different angles, and it's a really great alternative. The stand itself is $150, so we won't talk about the gear because everybody has their choices of gear, but when you're talking about like the clamps and stuff like that, you're probably looking at under $300 to make yourself your own portable studio. And that is what I have for you guys. So what questions do you have, if any? Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, guys. Any questions, comments, anything I can help answer? If not, we'll move on. I did that great of a job? All right, thank you. I have a question back here. Yeah, what's up?
First of all, love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
Why are your streams so successful? Is it your energy?
So I haven't done a live stream in a while, but I will say that I did 100 live streams in 100 days. I did do a 100-day challenge. I think that regardless, so it's funny, I love the Captivate software, right? So I think that the most important thing to having a successful live stream is really your level of engagement. So you can engage in a handful of different ways. The number one way to engage is absolutely to have that energy up. I started this, I'll give you a quick story. I started this because I was actually a banker. I taught financial literacy. And so I was in rooms like this, teaching first-time homebuyer courses. And so, when you're teaching stuff, it's really important to make eye contact. You see when people are processing. You see when they're not processing, a good teacher at least. And then we can engage, right? I can stop, I can answer your questions. My very first session after the pandemic, or once the pandemic started, it was on Zoom. There were about 50 people. So you guys know that that's actually a pretty good turnout. So I'm like, all right, this is cool. I can do this. 50 people, one person had his camera on. And then the one guy who had his camera on was asleep. I was mortified. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, and for me, yeah, we're laughing and we're making a joke about it, but I am a high energy person. And so I knew that if I needed to, one, if I was going to continue doing that and be happy and good at my job, and two, be successful as a commission-based loan officer, I needed to change what I was going to do and figure out how I can captivate and engage my audience. So a lot of it is whatever your energy level is normally. If you're going to get on camera, you should amplify that by 10 or 100 if you're like a mellow, chill person. You have to come with tons of more energy. The other thing is really then having engaging graphics, right? So whether you're making graphics in Keynote, whether you're making graphics in Captivate, whether you're making graphics in Ecamm Live, creating that engaging presentation. And then, I mean, I will say, so there's no secret sauce. I didn't get people to turn their cameras on, but for me, the metric on how I gauged if I was engaging people was paying attention to the Zoom chat. When I would have that Zoom chat open and I would see people asking me questions, you know, if we're talking about financial literacy, about debt to income ratio or overtime, that's when I knew I was doing my job and I was engaging them because the chat was engaged. And then in retrospect, with the live streams, the other piece of that is that you're gonna have people asking questions, and the way you keep people engaged is by bringing your chat questions up, right? So like people love to be recognized, people love to, like, you're calling on me, you're paying attention to me. So if you have, I know like with Ecamm Live and with OBS and different software, you can bring the chat comments up on screen. So being really diligent of bringing your viewers' comments on screen and talking directly to your viewers while you're doing a live stream is how you can really keep them engaged and keep them coming back. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you feel about virtual green screens possibly taking away from like actually physically having a green screen? Do you think we're getting to that point? Because I feel like virtual green screen tech is pretty good in some places and then like pretty bad in others, so.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say, right? Like I think like Zoom has their virtual backgrounds and I hate it. You can use a green screen in Zoom, like there's a box that you can say, I have a green screen to make your green screen better. I think the biggest thing is you work with what you got. So if that's the only option that you have to get your content out there or your customers' content out there, make it work. If not, then start with an actual green screen and work your way up. So, I mean, I'm not a fan, but for me, the priority is how can I get my content out? Great question, thank you. Any other questions? Good? All right, then I'm done. Thanks. And I'm gonna now introduce our next person, who is Daniel. And Daniel is doing mobile broadcasting and in real life, IRL streaming with LiveView. Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. All right, here you go.
Thank you very much. I have a terrible admission, everybody. I didn't make a single slide. I decided I couldn't face PowerPoint again. Like so much of my day is spent in PowerPoint, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I did bring a couple of videos, and when we're ready, we can watch one video. I hope with sound. I didn't mention sound before. We're gonna get sound with it? Let's see. With audio? With audio? That was my fault. I didn't tell them there was audio with it.
What the was that? This is us, Tallulah and Gaspar. And together, we are Awkward Travel. Since 2017, we've been streaming from all around the world. On a journey through more than 30 countries. From the Gulf of Thailand to sailing the wait. Did I mention the boat? Yeah, we stream on a boat. This boat. Wait, no, not this boat. This boat. No, that's not the boat. We sold that boat. Next, This boat? Yes, this boat. We stream on this boat. Grain de sel. Streaming from a boat is probably one of the most challenging types of content you can think of. Being away from land, constantly moving, crossing borders live, or fighting the elements, it took us years to pull that off, to perfect it. And to do so, we had to rethink everything. We had to move from the gear we had to the gear we needed.
And this is what we needed, the IRL backpack. Going from this to this completely revolutionized our content. It allowed us to push the boundaries even further than we ever imagined possible. Honestly, there's a lot to say about it, but I want to focus on the 5 reasons why we use the IRL backpack. And the first reason...
So we can stop it there. I thought I had cut it actually faster than that. So I think I actually moved the wrong file to the USB drive, the longer one. So that's Awkward's Travels. They're Twitch streamers. They happen to use the IRL backpack as sold by our partner, Unlimited IRL, and at the heart of that IRL backpack is LiveView Solo. So you probably have heard of LiveView. We've been coming to this since the first time Paul and team did it. Appreciate being back. Thanks for inviting us. We've been talking, in the streaming space about LiveView Solo for a long time. The product's actually been available for going on 10 years now, almost 10 years. First generation available for 8+ years. Could still buy one today. Second generation that we call Solo Pro has been available for about 2 years now. So LiveView, just if anybody happens to not know, LiveView is the originator of cellular bonding technology. You heard a little talk about cellular bonding earlier from other presenters. We're the originator of cellular bonding technology 18 years ago. We make products for the news market. That's kind of where we started. So there was a little talk about 3-letter networks and what was used on election night and what was used at the things like the political conventions here in DNC. That is all majority LiveView driven. Every news organization in the world uses some level of LiveView technology to do live video. What the LiveView Solo is a packaging of that same technology, same bonding algorithm meant for production companies, meant for content creators, podcasters, live streamers, Twitch streamers, all doing live from anywhere in the world. You see Tallulah and Gaspar doing it from on a boat. They're using LiveView Solo, sometimes connected to Starlink, so there's a little talk about Starlink before, a lot of times connected to cellular networks, even reaching out to shore to connect to the cellular networks. In this example that I brought, we've got an encoder connected to 4 LTE modems, so connected to 4 cellular networks right now. I happen to be using the DJI Pocket 3 as the camera. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's just a little quick background on who LiveView is. Who am I? My name's Dan Bazarski. I'm the CTO with LiveView. I'm also the product manager for Solo, so I get invited to these things and I love coming to them. And yeah, that's who I am for LiveView. So if you're not familiar with Solo before, I'll just give you a real quick rundown on it. It is a portable encoder. Please come up, take a look at it, even while I'm speaking. You can drive it it's got an internal battery good for about 3 hours of transmission. You can plug in an external battery to it. It uses USB-C power, so you can use any kind of power brick that you use for laptops or your phone to supplement that power. Has up to 4 cellular modems plus LAN and Wi-Fi, so plug it into your router, your portable router as well, just as the previous presenter was talking about. Use that data as well, plug it into Starlink and use that data. And it bonds all those connections together specifically for video transmission. So it's encoding video as HEVC or H.264, depending on which platform you're going to as the final destination. And then it's transmitting that over all those connections at once. And it's using our special algorithm to do that. And our algorithm has a lot of resiliency built right into the algorithm. So we were talking a little bit before about the Starlink loses a couple packets every 15 seconds. Our protocol alone can overcome those losses. You don't even need bonding to another connection per se to increase that reliability, although bonding is at the heart of what we do. So what else do I want to talk about? So I thought rather than do slides today, I would just come, tell you a little bit about the Solo, tell you who I am, and then we could talk over kind of implementing one in your workflow, what kit you might need with it, how you get help with it, just the whole process of using the Solo. We really wanted to be clear that You get lifetime support with the unit when you purchase it. In purchasing it from us, you have an option to get it with a data plan. So rather than having to go out, get your own Verizon SIM, your own AT&T SIM, your own T-Mobile SIM, worry about what plan it's on, whether it's going to throttle at 23 gigs or turn down when you reach a certain data limit, you can get the data plan directly from us with the modems ready to use, come out of the box and use, and that's truly unlimited, flat rate per month, doesn't matter how much you stream. You could stream 24 hours a day that entire month, and we have a few streamers who do, and it's a flat rate for that month. In addition, we offer receiving the bonded network in the cloud and turning that back into RTMP, and for the last few years, SRT. So flow that into the rest of your workflow, including to whatever online platform you want to go to, like YouTube, that now accepts SRT in if you get your account whitelisted for it, which we can help you with, and can directly take HEVC in instead of H.264, so you can use lower bit rate into YouTube and do better 4K, for example, at lower bit rates. And in addition to that, debonding in the cloud, we now offer cloud software that will receive that stream and do a few extra things to it. So if you want to put a logo in the corner, if you want to have a fallback slate if the stream goes away, like you have to change your battery real quick on the camera, and you don't have a way to keep the stream going, keep your audience there and not have the social media post act like the video ended and close it. That's a function we call Stream Tools. Relatively new for us in the last few years, available, again, all through the portal. Every LiveView device in the world participates in a command and control protocol, so you can remotely control them from anywhere in the world once they're online. There's a portal that is mobile responsive, so you can use it here from my phone to get things started, or I can use the controls on the front of the unit, or I can have somebody back at home base start, stop, change what destination I'm going to, and send that encoder out. I said I would talk about the kit a little bit. So this is a DJI Pocket 3. I don't know if anybody's tried this camera yet, but for IRL style streaming, if I'm going to be out interviewing somebody, man on the street, style streams, it's a very convenient camera. Has a PTZ control. You can flip it around to face you quickly and then flip back to face the subject very quickly. It happens to do UVC out or webcam style output. So you'll see I've got a few extra cables here. That's rigged into a UVC to HDMI adapter and then HDMI into the unit there. Just wanted to show off kind of that style. It's become quite popular for the setup, especially as HDMI cameras have become less popular. We also make an SDI version, so if you're using SDI in your studio, or you go out and do productions on more reliable, a little bit more professional SDI camera, plug SDI into it. Does up to 4K P60, so go get the Blackmagic Mini 4K and plug that in over SDI and do 4K straight to YouTube as HEVC, and now you've got a very high quality 4K stream on YouTube live the whole time. I also have an extra battery in there. Happens to be a 99 watt hour battery. Why 99? Because at 100 watt hours, you're not allowed to bring it on a plane anymore. So 99 watt hour if you're traveling with it, as a lot of our customers do. But we also have, just to illustrate the point, we also have customers that take this on corporate shoots, production companies that do weddings, bar mitzvahs, parties, things like that. Bring their SDI camera. You can still power it through a battery. In that case, you're not limited by, can I bring the battery on the plane, but bring an extra battery or plug it in the wall and power it that way. I happen to have it in the belt pack. We make that available. You saw in the video, our partner Unlimited IRL makes it available in a backpack style as well. We have other users that get creative. We've had people that have 3D printed desktop stands for it to hold the modem separately from it, get better reception. So we have people that get creative about how to configure the unit as well. The technology behind a lot of the online live content creators out there. So just to wrap things up before we get into the interactive part, everybody come up to the couches and we can all have a conversation. I thought I would wrap up with one clip to show, if you're familiar with the streamer iShowSpeed, he recently did a stream from Indonesia, which hit the record for the number of concurrent viewers on a live stream on YouTube. 1 million concurrent viewers during the live stream. And that stream and much of what iShowSpeed does when he's mobile, powered by LiveView Solo. So I thought I'd show you one more clip. So again, Current record holder for number of concurrent viewers on a live stream, iShowSpeed, being powered by that. And you notice he's using a Sony FX3. We have a lot of streamers that have upgraded from the more, this is a little bit in between the two, but a lot of the original streamers were using kind of an action cam style camera. That's got great motion sensing so that it's not a very shaky stream if you're wearing it on a shoulder mount or something like that. But we've had a lot of the streamers upgrade recently to Sony FX3 and similar things to get a more cinematic look for their stream. They're even now having camera people so that they don't have to carry it, and they're using things like the DJI Ronin as a stabilizer with the FX3. That lets you do things like depth of field and actually have a more cinematic look to the stream. So options all the way up from very inexpensive cameras up to the more serious stuff. So that was it. Again, I didn't want to do slides. Hopefully, just talk about it, but I do want to take all questions and answer anything we can about cellular bonding, streaming, live view, maybe some of the other products we make if you have any questions about that. This is, again, the product that we target at production companies, content creators. It's priced appropriate for that market. It's got the right features for that market, but LiveView makes products all the way up to what the news organizations use, which are, have a lot of different feature sets. So we can talk about that as well. So any questions, let me know. Absolutely. So everything you do with the LiveView Solo is managed through something called the Solo Portal. That's where you register your unit, turn on the bonding service, activate your data plan if you get the data plan from us, and now you can also activate Stream Tools. That will take the stream in first, so it is a first destination, and then output it again, and it's fully decoding the stream down to baseband in the cloud, on the cloud engine. And you can do a couple things with it there. You can put a logo on it. You can do a fallback slate if the stream were to go away. Again, things like changing out the camera battery or something like somebody kicks the power out of the wall. It will bring up a be right back slate. And you can do multi-destination output. So on its own, the Solo will only go to one destination. But when we pass it through Stream Tools like that, you can do up to 3 destinations. So you can do simultaneous to Vimeo and to YouTube and to Facebook, something like that in terms of the setup. So that's called Stream Tools. It actually was the result of our acquisition of a company called EasyLive.io, that some people might be familiar with from a few years ago, cloud production platform. And we make the full production platform available as a product called LiveView Studio, but this is a trimmed down feature set that we make available just for Solo. And again, you can just activate it right through Solo Portal. And the thing I want to outline, I should have mentioned before, for all 3 services, the debonding, the data plan, Stream Tools, is you can activate them through Solo Portal. You can also cancel them through Solo Portal. And you're never, unless you choose to do the annual plan as a way to save money, you're never making a commitment to us for more than a month. So even on the data plan, you can turn it on, use it for a month. You've got a month you don't have a lot of jobs, turn it off. Or you're covering a sports season, you've got months you're not going to use it, turn it off, don't use it in those months, turn it back on later. So very important to us to offer all of the services that we offer for Solo with that ability to stop anytime. Sure.
What's the runtime like, and does it have any kind of IP rating, or what kind of measures do you take at first? What do you think everything's safe?
So the internal battery is good for a little over 3 hours of transmit time. And again, you can supplement that with an external battery. It's not itself IP rated, but it is designed to be very resistive. So inside the belt pack, you'll see here the clear plastic top. That's weatherproof. You can have that out in the rain. The vents very purposely only put on the sides so that it doesn't vent from the top and get water in it from the top if you have it out in the real elements. It is drop tested. If you get a chance, come up and feel it. We can take it out of the case and I'll show it to you. Very rugged construction, can be dropped, pretty resistive in terms of what it can withstand. We've had a couple streamers accidentally drop it in the hot tub. Mixed results, there on whether that worked or not. We had one streamer, we were just at TwitchCon, and she was having trouble with her unit, and she came up, said it won't work, and there's a jog wheel on the front, and the jog wheel would not turn at all. We're like, oh, what happened to the unit? She's like, well, I took it to the beach, and it fell in the sand, and I'm really sorry about that. And we're like, oh, no trouble. Here's another one. What else can I answer for anybody? All right, good. Well, like I said, get a chance, come up and take a look at it. Lift it up, feel how heavy it is. That is with the extra battery. Try it out if you want. I did want to bring everything today so you could try it. And yeah, that's it. And if you have any questions, just grab me after and let me know. Thanks very much.
Awesome. All right. Very cool. So we are now at our box lunch time. It is going to be a networking, like a speed lunch kind of deal. The speakers so far should all be receiving keys. So if you guys are interested, like a NFC key, if you guys are interested in finding more about the speakers, just go up to them and you can scan this, and this should lead to either their website or a lead page for that. And then if you want to come up, see the live view solo more in depth, come up, and if not, we can break for lunch. How long are we doing lunch for, Paul? 45 minutes. So we're 12:30. 12:30. All right, guys. Thank you.
Do that. Today's seminar, oh, I gotta move my stuff, is building a streaming setup on a budget. Now, I'm not gonna have, I can't see the Q&A, so don't ask a question in the Q&A, ask it in the regular comments, which I have on the screen in front of me. That, green screen, cloth with sound reduction, I have a face for radio. Just looking at a couple of those, make sure there's nothing there for me. So yes, thank you all for being and I have stuff. All right, let me move it over here. This is part of the stuff. Go away. There we go. And if you have questions about building a streaming setup on a budget, post them in the comments. Let me know what your concerns are. Let me know what your pinch point is. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Because everybody's problem is different, and I don't want to talk about something that doesn't benefit you. That is very easy to do when we've got 81 people here, all involved and all have different questions. So like my normal weekly show, which is tomorrow, I always ask people, it's a live show. You're here, I'm here. We have the ability to communicate directly so you can help drive what's happening right now. So thank you for being here. A little bit about me. I am a 25-year broadcast television producer, Emmy nominated. Actually, the show that is Emmy nominated is A Parade, and I'm doing that this weekend. And also have had a show on PBS and Comcast in the Northeast. I used to live in Philadelphia, and that was on the air for over a decade. So been doing broadcast, multi-camera, live switch production for many, many years. Moved down to Texas, and I saw there was no studio space where I am, so I built Frisco Studios, which is a studio space that was on Main Street in downtown Frisco, and then I built a secondary sound stage in my house for the content that I was creating, which is where I am now. So if you're looking, questions about building a soundstage, her presentation was spot on. I went through all of those stages, and so her presentation was fantastic. I love it. When your question come in, how would you go about paywalling a live stream without breaking the bank? Lots of solutions there. Mobility and other accessibility needs. Mobility. Talking is hard, reading is hard. Have assistant for some things. How do I stream? Ooh, that's a really good one. All right, so thank you for those questions coming in. Again, post them in the main chat, not in the Q&A, because that's on a different screen and I can't read it. It's too far away. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens in front of me, and we got a lot to talk about. So I built this stand-up studio, and I'm actually in my stand-up studio right now. I'm also the owner of Stream for Us, because people would come to my soundstage in downtown Frisco and say, oh, this is great, but we don't want to do our production here. Can you move this to our corporate office because we want to do a quarterly event? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. So I created another brand for the same thing. So if somebody's looking for someone to stream for us, that's me. And if anybody's looking for consulting, there's a contact us page right there. I'm also the contributing editor for Streaming Media Producer. I've been writing for them for over a decade. And so if you're a high-level executive looking at, streaming costs, destinations, OTT, and things like that, this is a great resource. And they also do have producer information, gear reviews, and things like that. And lastly, this year, after so many years of being in the business and writing about this stuff, I started a YouTube channel. So I'm really late to the influencer, whatever game. I'm really late to being a YouTuber, but I have this StreamTek channel. And so you can find this on YouTube, and there's a live show every week. There are just so many tutorials about, what is NDI, what type of cabling, Ethernet, what type of networking should I do, how do I do wireless, what are the differences between different wireless microphones and the frequencies, and lots of tutorials to get started, lots of gear reviews. I don't cover high-end broadcast stuff because there's other avenues for that. I cover more budget streamers and first-time people getting into streaming, people who are looking to step up their game a little bit, and talking about the new options that are out there. You are living my dream life. Wow. Well, I don't know if it's a dream life, but it's certainly a way to go. Anybody else having problems with Restream? I'm not having problems with Restream right now, but tomorrow I do my regular show through Restream. I use Restream Studio, and it goes out to, and I use Restream multicasting to go out to 5 different destinations. So I'll find out, or maybe thanks to your comment, I will do a test today before tomorrow. So thank you for posting that comment. Again, 79 people. Post a comment in the comments, not the Q&A. If you have questions or a specific topic that you'd like to see addressed when we talk about budget streaming, let me know. The live view presentation that we just had, I thought was really good because it really does demonstrate, the Miri, which I happen to have one here. Well, you can't see it, it's backwards. The Miri is I'm very excited. This is what I'm going to do tomorrow's show about. We're going to do a walkthrough of this. We're going to, set up some connections with this. This is going to be a great solution for a lot of people, and it's so purpose built. It's beautiful with all the different wireless connectivity options, the multiple WAN inputs, the multiple LAN inputs, because that's the key thing. As somebody asked in the live view presentation in these comments, somebody says, can I use it for data, or is it just doing the video? LiveView really specializes in just doing the video. That's their specialty. Whereas this is kind of like a peplink. It's bonding data. So if you're in that remote location, not only do you want to send your video stream out, but you also want to be able to access and administer things in the cloud. You want to check your Facebook views. You want to get those comments back in. And that's where these things really pay off, because it's not just sending the video into a service, which is then sending it out, multicasting it. You have a direct connection to the internet being bonded across all those things. And that really pays off in terms of being able to do all those other things. Somebody's, you need to send a remote guest invite. Well, what email address? Well, I need to get it in my email to get his address so that I can send out this invite so that he could be a remote guest on the show. Things like that. Let's continue on. So building your streaming setup on a budget. Your streaming setup is going to be different than my streaming setup. And like I said, I got a streaming setup here, but what everyone else is streaming setup, like PTZ Optics does a regular show as well, their streaming setup is vastly different. I was talking with, I forget his name, but he's over in the networking room. They've got 2 TriCasters there. I don't have any, well, I have a TriCaster, but I'm not using a TriCaster for my shows. So what everybody wants and uses is vastly different. So again, let me know what you are interested in, what level of production you're interested in, and we'll see if we can address that. Continuing on, the first thing I always tell people is, what is your budget? And they say, well, I'm interested in getting these cameras, and I'm interested in doing this type of setup. First thing you need to do is establish a budget. Are you at $1,000? Are you at $5,000? Are you at $15,000? What budget do you have to be able to allocate to these things? And then within that budget, you can decide what you're going to spend more money on, what you're going to spend a little bit less money on. So if you needed bonding, this is important, and you're in a remote area, something like this is going to be critical. That's going to be an essential piece. So you're going to get this first before you start talking about cameras, because then if you spend a whole lot of money on, hey, let's get some big sensor cinema cameras, then you don't have enough money left to handle the bonding and everything else. You got to allocate your resources properly. It's like playing Monopoly. Where do you put the dollars? You've only got so many dollars, and you got to put them in the right places and allocate what goes where. And also work backwards, delivery first. What are you delivering? Are you doing a YouTube stream? Are you primarily interested in HD? Are you trying to do 4K? Are you trying to do multicasting to a dozen different outlets? Are you going to go to one destination? Work backwards and talk about what your delivery is first, and then start from there. Because if you're going to stream, and I personally feel streaming still is a great HD solution. The amount of people who can see 4K and actually benefit from 4K is very small. People who are going to have a 4K screen in their living room are still going to sit far enough back where they can't see the difference between HD and 4K. And then even if there is a little bit of a difference, is it that much more beneficial? Are you showing incredible detail, or are you having a conversation with people? So HD streaming versus 4K, fast and easy versus cinematic. You can get a PTZ camera, you can get a Mevo, you can get, I have a little Sony camera here that I find is fantastic for my uses, because if I hold up something, it'll automatically focus on it really fast, and then focus back on me, and focus on it really fast, and focus back on me. It's a Sony ZV-1. It's a vlogger camera, but for this particular purpose, it's fast and easy. It's not cinematic, but it's fast and easy. And for this particular use, this is what is working for me. I'm not after cinematic. Next, you come down here, multiple cameras versus one camera. You have to decide, is it going to be, if you're a gamer, I just need a good camera on me, so then I can spend a little bit more because it's just one camera. Whereas, we want to have a podcast, so we want to have 3 cameras for the guests. We want to have a main camera for everyone, and then we want to have a camera on the host. Well, okay, so now you're talking a bunch of cameras. So you're not going to be able to spend the same amount of money per camera. You're not going to get an FX, 9 for all those cameras unless your budget is really, really big. So you have to work that out. And lastly, audio is really important. And people, I think of audio last. They start thinking, okay, I'm going to go with a Sony, cinema camera. That's going to be my first thing. And then I'm going to, use this, I'm going to use the 8-times switcher. And they're working all that. And then at the very end, it's like, okay, and we need some microphones. And in the end, audio ends up being the most important thing because what our stream is radio with pictures. If my screen went black for a moment and I kept talking to you, you could keep hearing and understanding what I'm talking about. But if all of a sudden this went silent, or the audio was all garbled, or you couldn't hear me very well, and it's just me waving my finger around, it's useless. It's radio with pictures. If you have bad audio, people are gone. If you have good audio, they're going to stay. If you have low resolution or drop frames, people will wait around. Oh, it's just a little glitchy. Like the fight. The big fight that happened, people kept trying. This it's a little pixelated, but I can kind of see it. Maybe it'll clear up. They'll wait for it. Good quality mono audio is better than bad stereo. So focus on getting at least one good microphone, work on that. And then later, if you're doing something with music-based or things like that, then you could, try and, work on delivering a good stereo thing. A board feed plus the room mic. So like the conference we're watching, we have the board feed so we can hear a person asking the question, but when somebody in the room asks something, we can't hear them. Having a room mic for those remote guests is important so they feel more present in the room, because anyone in the room could hear the question being answered, but us being removed, there's no room mic, so we're missing half of the conversation. And also the presenter didn't repeat the question. So we just don't get that. We're missing it. Audio is really, really important in a stream. Ali jumps in here and says, audio shouldn't be noticed. You only notice it when it's bad. That is so true. That is so true. Is it still that for people to see 4K instead of HD, they need to sit between 3/4 and 1/2 the distance of the screen? Yes, there's online calculators. And honestly, remember, those calculators are based on perfect vision. I got glasses. I don't have perfect vision. Most people don't have perfect vision. They have good vision, not perfect vision. I remember a guy stood up in the front of class one day and he's like, what's the date on this quarter? I don't know. I can't read it. Okay, well, then you don't need 4K resolution. Having my network challenge in my area, we'll have to access the recording later. Okay, let's see if we come back up. To do with Restreams.io latest update this week, Facebook no longer sees the title field in the description. YouTube still updates title and description. Fine, may try to contact Restream. Yes, Restream updated their studio player and engine for creating events. I took a look at the new studio. I let them know I don't like the new studio. I don't feel it improves on the situation for how I use it, but doesn't matter. They're just pushing forward anyway. Let's continue down through here. Priorities. Again, when you're envisioning what you want to do, you need to write down your priorities. It's not about, don't talk about what I'm going to get. Talk about what you need to achieve the goal. What is the most important feature to have? Like for me, the most important feature is being able to have a space where I can stand and talk. Okay, so I need to elevate the camera. I need to have a wall for there's a green screen behind me, and I need to have that space, so that becomes the most important thing that I'm going to focus on. And then you go down from there. Then you go down to things that I'd like to have. Well, I'd like to have a good boom microphone and everything. I haven't really gotten there. I have a good directional mic. It's actually down here on the table, not above me. And that delivers good, and I've tested it, I've listened to it, it delivers good sound. Maybe not the best sound, but good sound. It's like to have. Then you get down to the things that would be cool, but you could do without. And then setting these priorities gives you the feature list that you need. Are you mobile? And you need something that is a single device that can do the camera switching and the graphics and the viewer comments and the bonding and everything. Well, there's a bunch of things out there like the YOLO Box Mini and the OBSBot Talent or the Magewell Director Mini. These things do all of that in a single little box. This one's got the battery sticking out of it. This one's got the battery built in, and these devices enable you to do all that. Then once you investigate those solutions, you start to say, okay, in order to use that solution, I need to, have a separate screen so that I could, see what the data is, or with the Talent and the Magewell Director Mini, I can use a keypad for doing my scene. So if I want to switch between just me, and if I want to switch between the side-by-side, I can just use the keypad, or maybe you like a tactile surface first, and then something like the Duet, the OC Duet with SDI, because none of these devices have SDI. I need SDI and HDMI recording and streaming, but it's going to be a sports event. I don't want to have to look at the touch screen every time I want to switch cameras. I want to keep my fingers on here and just switch cameras just by touching and feeling the thing. So these are great because it's a tactile surface first that the computer is built into, whereas these are all touch screens, so you have to be looking down at it or then add an additional touchscreen surface like YOLO Box makes the YOLO Deck, or you can use the Stream Deck with the Magewell Director Mini, and these give you that tactile surface. But in order to use these, now you need a computer to interface between this, talks to the computer, which talks across the network, which talks to this, and things add up, which is why you need to do that research. But it all starts with your priorities. Do you need something right here so you can switch? For me, the answer was yes. For you, it may not be the answer, because maybe you've got a producer who's going to be switching for you, and you're just focusing on building the studio and the capabilities. Setting your priorities gives you the feature list that helps you pick the gear that you want. Let's see if any new came down. Fari was asking if these sessions will be available later. Yes, the whole thing is recording, and I believe that these will all be available later. The Duet, Rod says, what is that Duet item again? It's the OC GoStream Duet. And if you go to my YouTube channel, StreamTek on YouTube, I have a couple different videos about it. One of the videos I did was you can actually take the preview bus, send it out the USB output, feed it into the USB input as your aux, and then do a picture-in-picture. So you can switch your sub-channel using the preview bus while switching your main output on top, which is crazy to think of. You're actually using one device as two different switchers. So that's really cool. And again, it's a physical tactile thing. A weekly church streamer, Bruce says, we use one PTZ camera connected to OBS and soundboard. On-screen display of service text that also goes to SVH projection for the congregation. Yeah, that's a great solution. Plus, OBS is a great tool. It's a very powerful tool. It lets you expand as you need it. Like I was saying about cameras, there's plenty of PTZ cameras, like the new X1 from BirdDog is wireless. That really makes things a little bit more flexible. Plus, you still got the long zoom range on this thing. And of course, PTZ optics. Can't have a show like today without a PTZ optics camera. And NDI is included with these, or this one, this is the Move. And when you're going wireless and you're trying to do NDI over wireless, just had a weekly show where we're talking about doing NDI but wirelessly. And then what you really need is you really need to step up your wireless game. I used to use, when I was using iPhones, I used to use the Google Puck with Switcher Studio. And that worked fine. I did up to 9 cameras wirelessly through this thing, and it worked great, not a problem, which is really impressive considering how affordable and small these are. But I'm able to build a mesh network and everything, very handy. But then when I try to do multiple NDI streams through the Google Puck, and it's not happy. So I had to step up my game. This Asus ROG Gamer was also, this was featured in the NDI episode on StreamTek, but it's got 2.5 gigabit in. This is a beast, and it's made to handle a lot of data as fast as possible. And that's what you're going to need if you're going to be doing NDI. You got to count your bits and things like that. If you're going to pick a camera, do you need a big zoom or no zoom? Like if you're doing a podcast, you can get the cameras in the middle of the table and just have your ISO. So a little Mevo Start for $399 is going to be fantastic. Do you need internal streaming or not? Do you have an external box to do all the switching and streaming? Or do you want like a Mevo Start or an OBSBot where you can do the streaming from the device itself? Do you need a camcorder or a PTZ? I mean, some PTZs can record, but aside from that, a camcorder, like if you're tracking sports, having a camera that is operated and following the action, I find still works better than an auto tracking PTZ. Those are great. I've used them, and tracking a presenter at the front of the room, those are great. But if you have sports or you have a conference where multiple people are going to be handing off microphones, you really need the smarts of a human to follow, okay, the microphone, went to this person and they're walking over to there and everything. Plus, I still find that in terms of following a person giving a presentation, a human operator is able to anticipate and move with the presenter as opposed to watch the presenter move across and then start following. That's still what the auto tracking PTZs look like. And then you need to ask, are you going to be dependent on NDI, SRT, RTMP? Do you need it to be wireless? Because you need to put these things where there's not something already set up, which is important. Like if you have an old church and you want to add capabilities, well, you're either going to be running Ethernet around the room, stringing it along, or going wireless, because you can't necessarily punch holes in the walls and fish it around in some old churches. Like I said, I lived in Philly. Got some old churches in there. Checking to see if on 4K cameras with SDI, why do manufacturers only make 3G SDI? There are, as George Bishop says, there are cameras that do have 4K over SDI, but it was actually 4K over HDMI was out before SDI. That's why when the GH4 came out from Panasonic, they came out with a super clunky adapter that took HDMI from the camera in and split it to quad SDI because there was no 4K SDI standard at the time. We're getting there, but there's still a lot of legacy hardware chips and everything that don't have that capability. And let's just see, we'll continue down the list here. I only have a few more minutes. I'm trying to tap down the next one. The best camera, I guess that's the last one. So that, I think, is one of the things. Does router affect NDI? Where can we get that one you showed? Oh, the ROG router. You're replying in a nested conversation. The ROG router is commercially available. You can get it on Amazon. And like I said, go watch the NDI show on StreamTek, because I talk about how this is hooked up. I show the actual bit rates going through the dashboard on this device, so you can really see what I'm talking about. And it's really going to depend on the type of NDI that you use, because, let me go here, because there's 4 different flavors of NDI, and it really depends upon what you're doing. If you're using NDI 3, and you're able to set it to H.265, your bit rates are going to be really small, and you might not need this beast. If you're going to be using NDI HX2 or HX1, and you're at higher bit rates with H.264, or you're using full NDI, which is going to be 100 megabits or more, if you're doing 4K, it's going to be 350 megabytes per camera. It's going to add up really fast and, place a lot of demands on your system. So if you have like the first generation Bird Dog cameras, they're all full NDI. They're all going to be, demanding a lot of your network. So does the router affect NDI? Not so much the router, but the bandwidth that you're dealing with affects the reliability of your signal. This is why Netgear, who makes dozens and dozens of business routers and business switches and consumer routers and switches and PoE and everything, they came out with a line specifically to handle NDI and understand the packet demands and the bandwidth needed on the backplane and everything, and the dashboard understands what NDI needs, because it is a really big ask. It is hundreds of megabits per second, and it's constant. It's not packetized data like downloading a document or opening a web page. If it comes in fits and starts, that's fine. we don't care. We don't notice it because the page is building and everything. But video, if that same bursting is happening and the hesitations are happening, oh, you notice it right away. So yeah, that's where the routers and switches really do, make or break NDI. And again, I covered a lot of this in the NDI show on the StreamTek channel. If you want to, you can go to StreamTek.us, StreamTek.us. And if I go to here, that's how you spell it, StreamTek.us. And I've done a half hour, so I'm free to answer more questions. That's the time I was allocated, so that's all I really prepared. We were talking, he was talking about bonding. I'll keep talking until they pop somebody else up on the screen. They were talking about bonding, and Magewell has the Miri, but they also have bonding in the Director Mini, also using Speedify. So